Alright, so someone asked me to talk about what's probably the most important aspect of awakening, and I have I still have an active type mind that likes to theorize and think and complicate things because it's interesting. Although compared to before, it still has its tendencies, but compared to before, most of the time it doesn't talk. So talking about the silencing of the mind and the disidentification from the thought narrative. So I mentioned that I like to overcomplicate things because I probably, my videos overcomplicate things just because that's the way my mind works. I remember, especially when I was younger, I was never really interested in video games or that much. I was never really interested in things like that, but I used to get excited about when I was going to bed. I would go to bed and I would lie in my bed and I would use my imagination to create stories and like fantasies and images and so on, just that weren't necessarily based in reality. They were based in, it was like just a creative mind thing, and that's what I used to get excited about doing, just because it's fun and it became kind of like an addiction in a way. And then that fantasy land started to become applied to life and started interfering with reality. But I mentioned that to highlight how interesting, how fun, how creative and hypnotic the mind is, the thoughts are. So I'll explain my experience with this. Right. So the most important part was I really struggled before with silencing the mind. I had this impression that I had to silence the mind, and in making that effort to silence the mind, it made it worse, because I was trying to silence the mind. This person was trying to silence my mind, and that effort immediately I perceived as losing the battle, because I couldn't. It was so difficult. I remember way back when I would read my books on Buddhism and Hindu philosophy and stuff like that. I remember a website that I was reading, and it said something like, if you can sit in silence for 1 hour, then you will be enlightened. And that's nonsense, really. But I believed it, and I thought, right, I have to sit and I have to not have a thought, and I sat and I tortured myself because I couldn't stop thinking. The harder I tried, the worse it got. But the solution to that, in a sense, was seeing through that whole circuit, seeing that this I was the one that was thinking, that was trying not to think, was trying to be present. It's me being present, me being still. Rather than just being. which is inherent. There's no trying there, there's nothing, it's effortless, completely effortless. So it's letting go of all that, letting go of the effort, letting go of everything. And more recently, when I had the shift, but what I was doing was, if you could say it's doing anything, was, I remember in one of my early videos I said I was fond of the do nothing approach to meditation. And it wasn't like me sitting down to meditate, because for me, when I sit down and meditate, it's me sitting down to meditate. Again, that suggests this person is doing something. So I find that really counterproductive. So I would just be aware of what's going on, even the mind, be aware of the thoughts, be aware of what's going on, and especially in the immediate environment, especially just what I'm doing. And for me, walking, I like to walk, so when I was walking, I noticed that I would either be walking in a thought stream, thinking about stuff, and obsessively thinking about stuff, and the content of that, when I started to watch it, when I started to become aware of it, I just become aware of the thoughts. Because when you are the thoughts, when you're identified with the thoughts, you're not aware. You're not aware that you're thinking. It's almost like when you become aware, it's like this coming out of this dream state, this amnesia kind of state that you weren't aware of when you were in it. You were just taken by it. And I noticed that in becoming aware of my environment, my physical environment, was a good tool. Just where I am in space, the images around me, the sounds, just bring it back to here, bring the attention back to here. And when I did that, again, the thoughts could still be there, but when I did that, the thoughts kind of tapered off and disappeared. And then again, it was like waking up. It was like someone giving me a slap in the face and going, "Look where you are." And I was like, "Oh, okay, like I'm here." And it was like coming out of a dream, and then the thoughts would come, and I would observe the thoughts, and the thoughts appearing in this space, in my perception, and then before you know it, again, you remember, and you wake up and you're like, "Oh, I was gone. I was gone for a bit there." And the funny thing is that this is when you start to notice that what you're thinking about, it's just a compulsive addiction. What you're thinking about is nonsense. It's just complete nonsense. It's repetitive. It's repetitive. Why do we need to go through the same thing over and over and over? And I had quite a lot of the kind of positive ones, I think, because of what I explained earlier. I had a little positive kind of jokes and funny things that I was thinking, which were entertaining. But again, that was just the mind, the thought form, keeping my attention. You see, look at this. This is funny. Look at this. Oh, this is worrying. Look at that. Oh, we need to figure this out. We need to laugh at this joke, and it's just repetitive, the same thing. And then when you do that more, you start to notice patterns. It's becoming aware of the thoughts. Not like I am being aware of my thoughts. Not like I know what I'm thinking, but just the thoughts. Just just the thoughts are there. Just the thoughts. The environment is here. Just the environment. Not like I am being aware of my thoughts. I am being aware of my environment. Just what's there, just the sensations. That's it. Keep coming back to that, and then I said those bits. You wake up, you realise, and you become aware again of I'm thinking, and then you're like, okay, and then there's that stillness there for a bit, and then you might, thoughts might come, but you're aware of the thoughts. That's it. That feeling of stillness, that expansive. You've expanded out of here. It's like you were in here thinking, and then you realise you're thinking, and then suddenly you're, oh, okay, I'm here, and then it comes back. Those little gaps, I just practiced, and I made a decision to myself. I made a decision that this is all I'm just gonna ceaselessly remember as much as possible, and not let it go. That's what I had to do anyway. That's what the self had to do anyway, because I think the self wanted the thoughts to stop, because at that point I had realised that the damage that we're doing, because I realised correlations, in my body when I had certain habitual thought patterns. When they got worse, I realised that I would feel physical symptoms, like I'd have stomach upset, indigestion, I would have neck pain, I would have headaches, and these were all linked to certain thinking and emotional patterns. I observed that, so I was like, right, okay, this isn't good for me, so for my body, for my health, so I'm going to make an effort to, and it was an effort initially, to just remember, and those little gaps, make those gaps longer and longer, as much as possible. Always remember. So, and it wasn't like I'm doing something, it was a let go. Just let what's happening happen. Just observe, just be here, be aware. Be here, be awake, be aware. As much as possible. And there wasn't any urgency to it, there wasn't any, I have to do this. It was just, I'm just going to let it happen, and be in that space of stillness as much as possible. And then it started to get easier, so I started to have longer gaps, and I started to be able to relax into it and just let the mind go. Just let it go. Not resist it. Just let it go. Not fight it. Just let it go. And bringing the attention into the immediate environment was the way I did it. And just observing the visual field, and the sounds, just all of this. Just looking for things I've not seen before, hearing sounds as acutely as possible. Just taking it all in. Just being here. And when I could relax into it, that's when things started to shift. Not sitting down to meditate all the time, just constantly. And then you see that this thought narrative that's obvious is in the forefront of your attention. When that goes, there's more there, it's just more subtle. So there's this thought narrative, the dialogue, and then there's kind of something like ideas and assumptions and more subtle, more crystallized forms of thought. It's kind of like a spectrum, like, the sensation in your body. If you close your eyes, compare that to your imagination, and I think is one of them just a more crystallized form of thought. What's the difference here? And that's when you can really see how the mind can affect your body and give you health problems and whatnot. That sounds it doesn't sound that ridiculous to me, actually, but being educated in physiology and so on, learning about this in formal education, it covers none of that, but I noticed it. A very strong link there. Anyway, so yeah, just that sense of being, that sense of consciousness, presence, I am awareness. That's it. Staying there as much as you can, but not fighting to get there, just allowing it, because it's always there. It's always there. When you resist, you're just covering it. And then the other insights that I talk about are just more of this expansive unity is revealed to you over time. The insight deepens naturally, and it doesn't have to be complicated. But the initial shift is like a identity change. It's like I know what I am. I remember what I am, and there's no doubt there. You remember. It's like that's why it's called waking up. You're like, oh, okay, I remember. Just like a bigger version of that coming out of the thought narrative and going, oh, I remember. I'm present now. I was lost in thought. You're like a bigger version of that. Like a macro version of that or whatever. And then you can really start appreciating the senses, because like I said, when you're stuck in that thought, it's all dimmed, it's all blunted. There's the vivid nature of sensory experience is being obscured by this, because all your attention's focused on this thought narrative. We become so good at this over time, and it becomes natural, and then it's difficult to do anything else. So but yeah, that's the most important. I know I go on about stuff that might seem unrelatable and doesn't make sense, but I think everyone can relate to this basic practice of bringing your attention back to what's going on now. Not what am I experiencing now, but just what is. Just I am. Just aware. Consciousness, awake. Here. Now. And it's just dropping things. It's just dropping things that you're holding on to. It's dropping the mind constructs, and then you begin to see how deep it goes, how it's not just a surface level thing, how everything is held together by this mind, this concept, these thoughts. Everything, our whole reality as we know it, is held together by these labels, these constructs, these assumptions, these interpretations. And it's right there. It's right there. It's just the way it is anyway. It's right there. It's just we're putting stuff in the road, if that makes sense. Say for example, you think you haven't had an awakening, right? So try this. So bring your attention into your environment immediately, into your environment, and then just let go of everything. Just let go of everything. Don't look for anything. Just simply bring your attention into the present moment now. That's it, right there. That's all it is. It's right there. Unless you're away in the thought narrative, if you can just bring your attention right into something. So like turn your head, look. I don't know whoever's watching this video where you are, but turn your head and look at something that you've not looked at before, something that you don't know is there. in that split second, that immediate, you see it, and then I'm looking at this, I'm looking at something else. It's that split second of just what is. That's it. It's just staying there as much as we can in life. It's really as simple as that. It's as simple as what's there before all the stuff. What's there before all the thoughts. What am I before all this? What am I before I start adding these things on? And I think it's the most important practice, I think, is just being here and existing. Being, just being, but being aware of being, or being in awareness of what you are. Because we're always being anyway. It's just, where is our attention? Where is our awareness? Are we caught up in something? Thoughts or a narrative or a story? Or can we just let go of everything and just be? It's really that simple. And that little gap I talked about when we did that, and it's not trying to extend that, just getting the taste of that, a flavour of that, and then knowing what that is. And you can't really even, it's not figuring it out with the mind that I have to know what this is. It's just, it's there anyway. You are it. Just let it be. Just let go. That's it. And whatever practice you need to do, let's say, and the practice is the person's thing. It's the thing the person uses to deconstruct itself initially. And it might seem like and everyone has a different personality, so it might be different for everyone. But if you can sit in that until it becomes comfortable, and know that you don't need to go through these thoughts all the time. The thoughts are a useful tool, and when it's there, be aware of it. It's not you, and you don't need to keep it. It doesn't have to keep going on and on and on. And you know, when you observe it, you can see that, you know, most of it is nonsense. Probably most of it is, and it's a lot of energy that we put into this. Like, you know. So anyway, that will do for now.